Welcome to the Weekly Homicide Report, the weekly program where we talk about all the people that needlessly died at the hands of another person. So we're going to start out this week with a quick look at the daily averages for gun homicides. In 2014, we averaged 33.8 per day. By 2017, we were averaging 43.1 per day, and by 2020, we were averaging over 50 per day. And our daily average of 52.3 is the best it's been since pre-Floyd. But it's still winter, so no worries, that number will rise before the year is over. Now let's take a look at this week's graph. Chicago had 10 homicides, and after a couple weeks of single-digit murders, it's nice to see them right back at it with the double-digit murder numbers this week. Philly had 9 homicides. They're doing everything they can to stick with Chicago. Last year, they stayed right with Chicago until week 13. So keep hanging in there, Philly. We're rooting for you. New York added 6 homicides, and over half of their numbers this year have been stabbings, which isn't really normal in America. Baltimore had 8 homicides and sits alongside New York with 13 on the year. St. Louis's website is only updated through January 10th, but they had 4 homicides since the last update, and they sit at 12. And I'm only leaving them on here because that number is really high, and they're literally a week behind. So we're going to keep them on here even though the website data is not completely accurate. Washington, D.C. also had 12 murders this year. After logging 5 last week, they've had 4 more this year than they did at this time last year. And Columbus had 3 and pulls up the rear with 10 on the year. There were 11 mass shootings. I covered a few of them. Houston had 2 of them, becoming the 4th city to register more than one this year. The one with the highest death count was the Goshen, California one, where 6 were killed. And the Fort Pierce, Florida, Martin Luther King Day event had the most overall victims with 8, but only 1 died in that one. 4 children under the age of 11 and 24 between the ages of 12 and 17 were shot and killed. We're still averaging nearly 1 per day for the little kids, which is on the high side. I covered the Devian McFall story. He was killed by a bullet intended for his sister. There were 16 defensive use of a firearm incidents. I covered a few of them. These numbers are nowhere near where they should be, and if you can't count on the system to protect you, make sure you can protect yourself. 1 officer was fatally shot in the line of duty last week, Deputy Sheriff Darnell Calhoun of Riverside, California. I covered this one. Calhoun was the 2nd officer killed by gunfire this year, and last year we didn't see 2 line of duty gunfire deaths until January 21st, and that was Jason Rivera of the NYPD. And I can still remember watching his wife speak at his funeral. If you never saw that video last year, it's worth looking up and hearing her speak. Well, that's all I have for you today, but I'll be back next week with the week 4 numbers. Until then, have a great week, and I'll catch you next week.